It sounds like you're excited on a Monday morning. Are you ready to meet an astronaut? So, our friend here, his name is Mr. Mark Lee, and he actually grew up in Wisconsin. That's pretty cool, huh? He was in the Air Force Academy, and he went to MIT. He's flown F-4s and F-16s before. He's flown for over 4,500 hours in the air. He's been on 4 space shuttle missions and has done 4 spacewalks. And during that time, he spent 33 days in space and has orbited the Earth 517 times. So, give a big welcome to Mr. Mark Lee.
All right. How many of you want to go into space? How many of you want to send your teachers? All right. Would you leave them there or bring them back? All right. Now, we're going to have a lot of fun today, but when I raise my hand like this, everybody's going to be quiet, right? All right. So, I was younger than you when I decided to be an astronaut. The exact day was May 5th, 1961. I was in 3rd grade in a one-room country school. We had 8 grades in the same room. Imagine, I only had 4 kids in my whole class. And we watched, that day, we watched Alan Shepard go into space. Who knows who Alan Shepard was? Who's heard that name? All right, a few of you have. He was the first American to go up into space. And we watched that on a black and white TV with a coat hanger out the top. Anybody remember that kind of technology? You guys do? Well, that's pretty amazing. But anyway, after that, I got kept in from recess. Anybody here ever been kept in from recess? All right, well, we got a lot of potential astronauts here, all right? Good group of kids. After that, to commemorate that launch, I took all the clay, my friend Roger and I, we took all the clay that the school had, we made it into missiles, we took it to the water fountain, we got it wet, we launched it off the back table and stuck it to the ceiling. All right? Mrs. Parker was not pleased. When I told her I thought it would stay up there forever, she thought I needed a lesson in gravity. Who would I get a book on from the library if I was going to give a report on gravity? Does anyone know? Astronauts? No. The person discovered gravity. Science? Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Isaac Newton. All right? So I got that book, and I got hooked on reading. I rode my little bike into town. Every time I went in, I'd get another biography, autobiography. Between May 5th and the end of the summer, I read 200 books. All right? How many people could read 200 books between now and the end of the school year? You think so, huh? Well, you keep a list of those books, all right? We'll see how many people make it. Single most important thing you can do is read. I know you got your video games and everything else, but reading is what probably took me to the stars. So I encourage all of you to read. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the 4 missions I was on. Talk about training, how we get ready for flights, what we're doing in the space program right now. Then I'm going to show you a movie after that. In the top left-hand corner, that's my first mission. Launch a satellite called Magellan. It went to Venus, map the surface of Venus. How many people have heard of that mission or seen some pictures from it? Okay, then in the top right-hand corner, gotta go back one, I've got Japanese Space Lab mission. The Japanese sponsored the mission. It wasn't their flight. They flew on the space shuttle. We did a number of different experiments in material science and life science. Then in the lower left-hand corner, right there, STS-64, I got to do something pretty special, even by astronauts standard. They got to fly a jetpack. All right, disconnected from the shuttle and flew around to test out this jetpack that's now worn by everybody who goes on a spacewalk. It's a self-rescue device. Then in the lower right-hand corner here, we got STS-82, which was to the Hubble Space Telescope. Has anybody not seen a picture from Hubble? All right, they're in all the textbooks, they're everywhere, and I got to do 3 spacewalks on Hubble. All right, now the space shuttle, when it goes out to the launch pad, we launched 135 times in the space shuttle. And it goes out to the launch pad on this mobile launch platform. And the reason I talk about that is that same platform was used during the Apollo mission way back in the 70s. And it's also going to be used for future missions. So a little bit later on, I'm going to come back and show you what we're going to do with the new spacecraft that we're building right now. When we get ready for a launch, we do all of our training in Houston, Texas. Nowadays, people train in Russia, they train in Europe, they train in Japan, a lot of different places. We come down to the Kennedy Space Center a few days before launch, gives us the opportunity to relax a little bit, and then we head on out to the launch pad after we get up and have breakfast. Each person gets their orange launch and entry suit on. We get into the vehicle. It takes about 2 hours or so to get everybody inside and strapped. Because imagine if your chair was about 6 feet off the ground, stuck into the wall. We have to crawl up because the space shuttle's sitting on its tail. So we have to crawl up in that seat. We have to have several people help us get ready. You'll see some of that in the movie. Then we lift off. How many people have been to the Kennedy Space Center? Quite a few people. There's an opportunity down there to do the shuttle launch experience where you get in the vehicle. It has all the same kind of sounds and vibrations that you'll have for a shuttle launch. So if you want to take a great educational trip and also, maybe go to Disney World, it's a good place to go. All right, here's the Magellan spacecraft, which was my first mission. This part is Magellan from the top right down to this plane right here. Below it is the device, a rocket with the USA on it, is a inertial upper stage. So it's a smart rocket. And then once we let go of the spacecraft, it still has to go a long ways to Venus. So this smart rocket at the bottom is able to point it in the right direction and bird and head on over to Venus. Here is a picture of Venus, that little dot in the background. I was noticing the other morning when I got up, there's real bright stars. If you want to get up tomorrow just before sunrise and look up to the east, if it's clear, you're going to see Venus, and I think you also see Jupiter right now. So the two brightest stars at sunrise, go look for them tomorrow. Now here's the Space Lab mission with the Japanese. All of our experiments are on the racks on the side. We've got stowage overhead. Normally we only have a couple people back there at a time because we work 24 hours. So we have a day shift or a red shift and a blue shift. We go do our experiments so we can try to get all of them done in the time that we're up in space. One of the things that's probably the most amazing is this mission only lasted 7 days. We trained for 2.5 years. 2.5 years to get ready for that one flight. So it takes a really long time to learn all the different experiments that we have and to make sure that everything's put together correctly. There are a lot of things that we, that change when you're up in space. One of the things is that your fluid shifts from your legs to your upper body, so your legs get skinny. You also grow. I grow 2 inches when I go in space. How many people like to grow a couple inches? Everybody here would grow at least an inch, inch and a half if they're up in orbit, just because everything just kind of expands and loosens up, and the fluid shifts. Like right now, there's a lot of blood and water pooled down in my legs because of gravity, and it moves up, and your waist gets a little bit bigger, things like that. To train for spacewalks, does everybody here go swimming? Is there anybody who doesn't go swimming? All right, swimming, a couple people in the back. Swimming is a very good simulation of being in zero gravity because when you're in the water, you can turn and twist any different way, and there's really nothing that keeps you from doing that. So what we do down in Houston is we get into our spacesuit. It's the same one that we wear up in orbit, not the exact same one, but the same buildup of a suit. And we get our gloves on, get our helmet on. This rack gets lifted up and put in the water. And we have one of the biggest swimming pools in the world. It holds 5 million gallons. It's 40 feet deep, 100 feet wide, 200 feet long, and we can get in the suit. We can go underwater for 6 hours at a time to go through all the maneuvers and use all the equipment and all the translation paths and everything that we need to do the spacewalk up in orbit. Only we're going to do it in the water because it is such a perfect simulation. And in the background, you'll see this is a portion of the Hubble Space Telescope. We also have safety divers. We have a mechanical arm which is used up in orbit. So once you go in the water, they take you down to the bottom of the pool and they move lead weights all over your legs and your backpack, on your chest, on your arms, to make you neutrally buoyant so you don't come floating to the surface and you don't sink to the bottom. And if you turn sideways to do an experiment, you stay there. It isn't like a bobber where you pop back up all the time. So they make sure that you're weighted out correctly to go about and do all the work. Now these people, these are also on a spacewalk because just like you now have video games, we now use video games, virtual reality to train for a lot of our work as well. So right now we've got goggles on which give you a view of the space shuttle, space station, the Earth, just as if you were up in orbit. We've got sensors on our hands so you can actually see your hands of what you're touching and moving around. We also have a hand controller that's right here that allows you to fly the jetpack. And this is what it looks like when you really get to go up in orbit. How many like to fly a jetpack up in space? This is actually a picture of me up there, up on my third mission.